usual. And sir, have you seen the terrible news that happened today out in, how do you say it? Punxsutawney? Punxsutawney?
Close enough. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Have you seen that we have 6 more weeks of winter? And does that bother you? And does it bother you that we're still using a groundhog?
Yeah, I can't think of
For
anything that I care about less than Groundhog Day or why we pay attention to that nonsense.
what about the movie? Like, does the movie intrigue you at all?
Dude, I haven't seen that movie in so long.
Me either.
I don't feel like, well, I know it's like a cult. Is it a cult classic or did it do well box office wise? Like, was it a hit?
I
Because
don't
that
know.
was like the peak of Bill Murray when that movie came out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember.
I don't know if it did well in box office or not.
Huh. Interesting. I did see that. Yeah. Groundhog Day. Like, do we still take that seriously as
I don't
people?
I don't really understand it. Like why, like do you know that like 40,000 people gathered today for this groundhog to see if it sees its shadow or not?
Yeah. So I still get alerts from one of the colleges I went to, and I got an alert on my phone and it said, "We are off today for Groundhog Day." Groundhog's Day. Swear to God.
Is the mascot like a groundhog or something from the college?
No, it's a wolf. So I'm like, what? Why? Why?
I've never heard of that being a holiday that anyone was off for ever.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, but it has nothing to do with the location of Poxitani Phil either. So I'm like, why? And I don't remember that. I don't ever, I mean, maybe it was just for something going on the campus and they just used that as sort of like a funny, I have no idea. I didn't look into it obviously, but I was like, okay,
Yeah.
we're getting off for Groundhog's Day. That's cool. I thought that was bizarre.
It's weird though.
But
It's like it's kind of, I think it's kind of like people gather for that, and then after that's done, it's like, I don't know, like a big craft fair kind, like it's like a
yeah,
big fair
I
basically
mean,
for everyone. Which
yeah, you want to bring the community together at the mercy of some little shit rodent. That's fine. I don't know. I don't know. Have you seen that commercial, the Sam Adams commercial? Your cousin from Boston. You know, have you ever seen that bullshit?
I don't know.
It's like the
Maybe.
dumb cousin from Boston, and he always gets like into trouble. Well, he walks into a bar with a case of, which is actually a really good beer, Sam Adams Cold Snap. It's a winter lager.
Uh-huh.
And he goes, I brought a groundhog too. And the cage is open. He's like, uh-oh. And then like, it just shows like from the point of view of the groundhog, he's like terrorizing the bar. I'm already tired of that commercial. Like I am Sonic commercials, but also I got corrected. Apparently no one likes Wendy's like I do. We had the fast food conversation on the last show and I posted a little clip.
We did.
Yeah, I posted a little clip and apparently I'm way off on Wendy's. I think it's great. Anyway, we don't have to do that conversation again, but apparently
Doesn't
I'm alone on that.
Wendy's have like 5 different burgers and each one has like more patties?
Oh, they do a
It's not
triple.
like a triple. I thought they went bigger than that. Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else.
Yeah, you might be.
But the Frosties are dope.
I've never had one.
Well, because you would shit your brains out if you ate one, probably.
Dude, water makes me shit my brains out. So at this point, it's just like go for broke. Just get it and deal with it later.
You really never had a Frosty? Wow, that's
No.
crazy. Are you like an
It's
ice
just
cream guy though?
I love, well, dude, a Heath Concrete, get right out of town. Yeah. No, but I mean, I try not to. Dude, again, no, you are right though. That makes me shit. Like I feel so terrible. That's one thing I always want when I'm sick. Like my wife always jokes is like, I know when you're not feeling good, when you're like, hey, want to get ice cream? Because that's my first, I don't know, it's weird. Whenever I have like a cold or, you know, something's going on with my throat or sinuses, I'm always like, the first thing I want is something extra cold, like ice cream. Just the texture and the consistency of it.
Makes sense for like a sore throat or whatever, but I don't know. I think I was told when I was a kid that like when you're
Don't
sick,
have ice cream when you have a sore throat.
No, well, but like I think I was told don't eat or drink dairy.
Dairy, right.
When you're sick. And that's always been like I don't know, I jammed into my mindset. So anytime
I ignored that. Yeah. I was told that too. I think it's just sore throat though. It has something to do because if you have an infection, you don't want to have dairy.
Gotcha.
But who knows, dude? I mean, it's all the same shit. Back to the groundhog and winter. Yeah, I'm over winter. I normally am a big fan. I mean, I am a big fan of winter, but so, you know, we had the ice storm here a couple of days ago. The next morning, go to start my car, no go. And I'm like, what's going on here? And I'm checking, like, did I leave something on? No, everything's fine. And I'm trying, of course, every car now is fucking, there's no keys anymore, right?
Mhm.
Remember when you had a real car that you put a key in and you had to
Mhm.
start it like that?
Yeah.
There was that little trick you had where you knew how to get it started. Well, now you just have a button and you're fucked. If it doesn't start, you're fucked. And the first time I went to do it, it said your coolant temperature is too high. And I'm like, what? So I spent all day trying to figure out how to get this motherfucker started. And then finally I was like, all right, I'm calling a tow. I'm taking it to a shop. I'm not dealing with it anymore. I needed a new battery.
Ah,
So it really had nothing to do with cold at all, but I'm still blaming it on the cold.
is
So,
this a new car? Like a newer car, or is this one you've had for quite a while?
I mean, my car's newer, sure. The battery was 4 years old. I've always owned, I've never not owned SUVs, but one time in my life, every SUV I've had, battery life is shit. I've had them different makes, different models. The battery always is about 4 to 5 years, and then you need a new one.
I think that's kind of average. Well, no, it's like five
Is
to
it?
7 years. I don't know. This is
Well, let me tell
definitely
you this.
boring.
I once
Boring.
drove a Honda Civic, and I'm telling you, I could have drove that thing into a lake, left it at the bottom, pulled it out 30 years later, and it
Yep.
would have started. It
Yeah.
would have started. There would
Yep.
have been no confusion that took a key. And there would have been no confusion when I put that key in and started it. Like
Probably
it
could
would
have
have
took a
started.
screwdriver too if you really
I
wanted to.
know. I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
I had a
42
Honda.
miles to the gallon.
I had a
Get rid of
Honda
that.
Accord, man. Same situation.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, those cars. I mean, I know a guy. He drove a Honda CRX. Which, by the way, if I ever see a Cherry CRX on the road, I'm knocking on the window and be like, "Can I buy that car from you?" That or a Honda Prelude. Do you remember the Honda Prelude?
I do. Yeah.
Still one of my favorite cars ever made.
Really.
Oh yeah. If I ever see one of those. He drove a CRX. He never changed the oil, never had it tuned up. Basically ran it into the ground, or what you think would be 15 years later, still runs like a champ.
No, there's
It,
no oil in it. It doesn't even take oil.
there's no, it doesn't even need it. Yeah, I think he just puts fucking vegetable oil in it at this point. I haven't seen the guy in a long time, so I have no idea. But yeah, I mean, it lasted a long. I know he didn't take care of it, which was really disrespectful because that car seriously could outlive all of us.
And probably gets like 130 miles to the gallon.
It's like 50. Those
Yeah.
old school CRXs, yeah, like
Uh-huh.
50. Yeah, yeah. Like if the apocalypse happens, there's just going to be servers full of porn and tweets from people that don't matter and Honda CRXs. Like that's what it's going to be. The world's going to explode, everything's going to burn, and we're just going to have servers full of information that nobody wants, and then Honda CRXs. Yeah. Yeah, so I blamed the cold weather, but it wasn't the cold weather. I just needed a new goddamn battery, which was so frustrating.
I
So
get it.
$400 later, after the new battery and paying for the tow, here I am. I am just running out of luck, dude. It has not been, I thought 2023 was going to be a luckier year. So far, not so much.
I was gonna say right before we started recording, you were telling me that you got set straight on your Dave Chappelle situation.
I did.
Tell me what you were told about people who. So
Do you want me to read it?
This came from someone who was actually there at the.
Someone who was there at the show and listened to us talk about it.
Okay.
I'll read it to you. He will listen to this episode and know that he is featured. My boy AG, you know who you are, shithead. Okay. Currently watching Raised episode 134, just a little Chappelle show insight. Getting in wasn't that bad if you were paying attention. If you're oblivious to your surroundings and just walking a line staring at your phone, you would have missed a couple of things that you had to do before you could go to the metal detectors and try to get in. That being said, it wasn't exactly organized well, but me being paranoid and on point at all times, I saw what was going on and we got in fast. You actually got to keep your phone, just had to put it in what looked like a dry bag that you would take on a float trip. So you got to keep your phone, you just couldn't look at it. But there were stations all around the arena that you could go to where the magnet would unlock your bag and you could look at your phone. Leaving sucked a little bit, but not because of the bags. They had all of the stairwells locked, so you had to use the escalators. And the problem with Chappelle not getting there till 11:15 to 11:30 is that the Enterprise Center has a curfew. So his set was super short, Rock's was super long, and the opener came back out after Rock and did crowd work. It was rough. Donnell Rawlings opened that show.
I don't know. I was gonna ask you if you knew who the opener was.
What do you
I
want to
want
bet
to
the Enterprise Center does not say who the opener was? Of course they don't. How disrespectful. I want to say it was Donnell. Anyway, I want to say, but either way. So yeah, he didn't apparently have as bad a time as. So my response, so that was a long text to read, nonetheless, and my
Yeah.
response was, "This is all fine, but you didn't run to your local news station and bitch about it." He was like, "No, those people are idiots." I'm like, "Well, then you didn't
So
need to say
do you
anything,
think that
did you?"
do you think
Okay.
do you think that's how
I
that
love you,
happened?
AG. Huh?
I know you sent me the article of people complaining about it. Is that people that went to the news station to complain, or like how did they get that? Because I feel like they would have to be out there trying to get that information from people.
Here's what I want to believe. Based on the first person featured in that article, the color of their skin and their name, I want to believe that they went to the news and bitched. That's what I want to believe.
They left straight from the show.
I think their white privilege was on high and they were upset and someone had to know about it. That's what I think.
Okay, so you're gonna make this a white privilege thing.
It's 100% a white. Again, how many people
But
who are
is
not white did
is
you
it a white
hear bitching about
is
this?
is it a white privilege thing because of the situation and how they act, or is it a white privilege thing because it was black comedians on stage? That has nothing to do with it, right?
That has nothing to do with it.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I want to make
This
sure you
could-
weren't tying that in somewhere because I didn't
You're
understand
thinking
how you were doing
you're
it.
way overthinking this as usual. Yes. It's just not something that I would complain about. I mean, it's those the joke of first world problems. I mean, that's the epitome of a first world problem. My comedy show started late, and I couldn't look at my phone. It's like, okay,
Well, do you know there were people trying to go through Ticketmaster, contacting Ticketmaster to try to get half of their money back because they only got to see half of Dave Chappelle's set? No words. You have nothing.
I don't. I mean, I'm speechless at those people. Those people are. I just.
I mean, I understand that it's not his fault, like Dave Chappelle's fault. And I'm not saying that anybody should be able to get their money back like that, but kind of a crappy situation.
Yeah, it sucks.
Especially,
But life
especially
sucks sometimes.
I know, but if you're paying that kind of money for tickets, that's what sucks.
I mean, Incubus got canceled, albeit I got a refund. They re-announced the tour, and guess where they're not coming. That's
Oh, really? They're not.
no, and my buddy who was supposed to go with me that night actually tweeted at them. He's like, "Hey, what about St. Louis? Because they're going to like Rogers, Arkansas, which I've been to, by the way." And he's like, "Fucking Rogers, Arkansas. What about St. Louis?" And I was like, "Hey, bro, calm down. There are some fine folks in Rogers. I've been there a couple of times, but no, they're not coming. They're
Huh.
not coming.
Weird.
It's a bummer." I want to let's make a bet right now because I have not looked. Did you hear that Fall Out Boy and Bring Me the Horizon are doing a stadium tour together?
I did not.
We're gonna look it up right now. What's
Okay.
the over under, or do you think they're coming to St. Louis? You want to make a friendly wager right now? What do you think?
I think they'll do St. Louis.
You think it's coming?
Yeah. They'll do Enterprise.
Let's find out. Fall Out Boy announced a massive tour with Bring Me the Horizon, Alkaline Trio, Newfound Glory, and more.
Jesus.
Starting in June on the 21st, they will be at Wrigley Field in Chicago.
That's a given.
On the 23rd, they will be at the Hollywood Casino Amphitheater in Maryland Heights,
wow.
Missouri. I stand corrected. So they're going from Wrigley Field to an amphitheater. What happened there? Yeah, they're doing like a mix of amphitheaters and stadiums. Very bizarre.
So you're asking why they didn't do Bush instead of
Well, I know why they're not doing Bush.
because they can't fill it,
Fuck no. There's no
but they
way.
can fill Wrigley?
Have you ever been to Wrigley?
No.
Not that big.
Oh, really?
Not that big.
Okay.
Also, a shithole. Sorry, Cubs fans. That was an interesting tour, though. I would go to that.
I would for sure.
So,
I wonder who the more is. So Newfound Glory, Alkaline Trio.
well, like
Fall
some
Out
bands are
Boy.
doing specific dates because I follow 4 Year Strong because I love them on social media, and they announced that they're doing Fenway Park in Boston.
Doesn't Bring Me the Horizon kind of seem like the odd man out in that lineup?
I want to say yes, but no because they're so big. I think it's just a win for everybody, to be honest with you. So the bands that will be doing specific dates will be Alkaline Trio, Newfound Glory, 4 Year Strong. The Academy is Games We Play, Daisy Grenade, and Car. So like I said, 4 Year Strong's doing the Fenway Park show, which is dope. Yeah, so Fenway Park will be Bring Me the Horizon and 4 Year Strong. The other stadiums they're doing, so Wrigley, Fenway, they're doing BMO Stadium in Los Angeles. What's BMO? Who play? Is that a new name for a stadium?
Where'd you say it was at?
BMO
No,
Outdoor
where?
Stadium located at Exhibition Place, Los
where
Angeles,
oh,
California.
Los Angeles.
That's what it said. Anyway, it's a cool tour. I'm probably not gonna go, but do you know what this Tuesday is though? Parkway Drive at the
Oh
pageant.
yeah, are you going?
Probably gonna buy a ticket and just go by myself. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. I really want to go. They released the set list that they're doing on this tour. Someone put it on Twitter. I gotta go. I gotta go.
Yeah.
It's a fine mix of everything you would expect them to play, and then stuff from the last two records. If you're a fan, would want them to play. So yeah, I think I'm just gonna. God, why does it have to be on a Tuesday? Why do
Yeah,
we do
I was
anything on a
just thinking
Tuesday?
that. Yeah, I mean,
Like
weekend concerts suck. They suck much worse for me, not
weekday
you.
concerts?
What did I say? Week? Did I say weekend?
You
My
said
bad.
weekend.
Oh, my bad.
Why do they suck for you more than me?
Because I have the travel
I got a life. I got a job.
to try to
I got
make that happen.
responsibilities. I pay
you're like
taxes.
10, you're like 10 minutes away from your house.
Good point.
I'm like an hour 15.
Move to where everything is, then, guy.
I'm not gonna move to St. Louis to be 10 minutes away from a Tuesday concert.
It's worth it.
Is it?
Well, now I know who I'm sending all the videos to from the
All right.
show.
You said the factory or the pageant? The pageant, right?
Pageant. It was the last one was at the factory.
And who else is on that bill?
Memphis May Fire and Currents. That's a really
Memphis
good
May
lineup.
Fire, that's right. I seen
Yeah.
them with Story a few years back at the pageant.
Yeah, Currents is dope too. Yeah, I'm going. I have to go. That's a great lineup.
Was it Memphis May Fire played Red Flag recently, right?
I don't know. Probably.
Because I think a friend of yours was telling me that he went to the Red Flag the night before, and Marty, that's the lead singer of Memphis May Fire, right? That he fell off the stage. Maddie, that he fell off the stage.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
I can't remember who they were with, but
Yeah, I don't remember. But I remember that story and hearing about that at that same party.
I need to go. I want to go to another show at Red Flag. It's a pretty cool little venue.
I like it. I think it's really cool. And I think it's totally suitable for a lot of the bands that they're booking. You know, I'm trying to find a non-insulting way to say this. I don't know. I mean, bands that can't play arenas, I guess, is the way that I would put it. Like, what does it fit? The same as the pageant or close to it?
No way,
It's got
really?
to. No, half of it.
Is
I
it
don't
that big?
I don't know. It seems pretty big. I mean,
I
if
figure
you
it
fill
was
that
more.
fucking place, like
I figure it was more comparable to Pops.
potentially. I mean, but still, you get a lot of people in Pops. You know,
Yeah, sure.
I mean, I've been to a sold out show there, and it's nuts. So before we talk about more music, I want to ask you something. Have you ever done a psychedelic drug?
No.
No. Thought
No.
about it? Never.
Uh,
Scared of it?
yeah.
What are you scared of?
I don't. Just how I would react on it, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, trust me, I get it. That's a common fear to have, and believe me, it's a legitimate fear. The only reason I ask is so last night my wife was asking me, she's like, "Hey, did you hear about so and so talking about their ayahuasca trip?" And I looked at her and I said, "There is nothing more boring to me than hearing about someone's acid trip or DMT trip or ayahuasca trip. I don't care. I don't want to hear about it."
Was this was this like a celebrity she's talking about, or something?
I can't remember. I can't
Okay.
remember. And I asked her, and she was like, "Honestly, I don't even remember that." Like, if I'm listening to Rogan and he has someone talking about DMT, or I'm like, done with this episode. I don't care. It is so boring. And I like how everyone that does a psychedelic once, they like, especially like someone in the public eye, like they do it once, and all of a sudden they're like a high priest of the supernatural world. I'm like, shut up. It's not that interesting. You didn't experience anything other than a trip. You're on a psychedelic. You didn't go to the afterlife. You didn't get enlightened. You're the same person you were before you did it. Go to a bar. Go to a bar, take 2 Vicodin, go to a bar, do a bump off a toilet, drink some beers, and get in a bar fight. Be a real adult. You're gonna go to the desert and do ayahuasca. Shut up.
Now,
What were you gonna say?
I think a lot of that is Joe Rogan cramming that down a lot of people's throats
Oh
because
God, it is
just
so.
he's
It's
talked
like
about it a
the
million
animal
times.
talk.
Yeah, he's talked about it a million times, but hasn't Cowboy done it? I think I've heard Cowboy talk about doing it.
Yeah, I'm sure he has.
Yeah, I don't know. It
And even
interests,
Cowboy talking about it isn't interesting.
well, it interests
and I
me just because of what they say. I'm not saying they went to the afterlife and all that kind of stuff,
no,
but
I
like
get it. I get it.
all of them say that they are a different person when they leave that. I mean, it's just chemicals in your brain making things crazy, but and understanding that, but I don't know. It interests me, but not something that I really have any desire
To do.
do. I don't see that
But you
benefiting
certainly
my
don't want to
life.
hear anyone else talk about it, though.
Not anymore. No, it was cool. It was cool at
At
first and
first.
interesting at first.
So
Yeah,
when did they
but
lose you? What made you stop wanting to hear other
just hearing
people talk about
just
their
hearing it
fantastic?
over. Yeah,
Yeah.
just hearing it over and over and over again.
He had, I want to say Tom Segura was talking about it on Rogan. And Bert Kreischer was like acting like Jesus just sat down beside him and was telling a story. I'm like, dude, it's not that interesting. It's not. There's nothing like, and of course, Tom Segura is like this, like, he's very off-putting at times because he's so like in his own bubble and like a guarded off freak.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, acting like, Bert, I don't know why you're so surprised about this. I do things without telling you. Like that whole thing. Just made the whole thing even less desirable to listen to.
Isn't
Yeah,
it interesting that Tom Segura is able to do that? Like that he can be as big of a name as he is now and be in that circle of people, but also like be just doing his own thing. Like you don't really see it.
it's the
It's
way you should
smart.
do things, to be
Yeah,
honest with you.
it's smart.
Yeah.
Like, but especially the fact that his wife is as big as she is also as a comedian and stuff, but they also like are just, yeah, like you said, guarded. Like they're not just all in the fame. They're kind of like, hey, I got a family over here too. So that's what I'm doing whenever I'm not doing the fame thing.
Yeah, I mean, I meant guarded in both a good and bad way. But I mean, I think it's the same thing as like Joe Rogan. Like Joe Rogan's in his own bubble, and I think he's totally out of touch with the rest of the world. Did you watch that video I sent you of Louis C.K. calling him out?
No, I didn't get a chance to watch it.
Oh man.
Talking about Lex Friedman and Andrew Huberman, we're talking about saunas and cold plunges and stuff like that, and like the benefits of it. They're two scientists.
Yeah.
They're talking
Pause
about
there real quick.
the provable benefits.
I can't imagine who on this earth would be entertained by Lex Friedman and Andrew Huberman talking about that. Like, who would listen to that? Is my first thing. Besides Joe, because apparently he's riveted by two boring people speak about two boring things. Anyway, sorry.
Heat shock proteins, cold shock proteins. And I'm reading the comments where some guy was like, yeah, well, you guys aren't talking about how much it costs to buy a sauna. You're making it seem like it's all free. And like what are you supposed to do? Like every fucking thing? Like, I'm sorry if you're broke.
Oh no, you have the conversation for people that can live that way.
Well, I mean, not just,
but it's just fun.
But it's not it's not impossible to achieve. We're not talking about buying a fucking Lamborghini.
Yeah, but I'm not saying that there's something wrong with talking about that stuff because other people can't afford it. That's not at all what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that it's actually part of why people are miserable is because it's a ridiculous conversation. It's a ridiculous. It's not like the way the earth and the experience of like competing.
Okay, pause it.
Food and oxygen and living in the.
So Louis C.K. just had a real reaction to something that he didn't like.
But this is also Louis C.K.'s comedy.
But here's the thing. While what he just said made me laugh, I don't think he's joking.
No, okay, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is how he's putting this out there is exactly how he would put this out there if he was talking about it on stage.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
And because I've already seen this and you haven't, watch how defensive Joe gets. And it goes back to what I'm saying. You live in a bubble. Like, you can afford a sauna. You can afford all this stuff. Other people can't. And you get defensive when people ask, like, hey, Ever thought about talking about something else we can relate to? Which is fine. He can talk about whatever he wants, and I'm with that. But I mean, go ahead.
On Earth, and living in society and just being a person, we've got to some altitude here where we're having some stupid conversations that are just, should I do a cold plunge or a sauna? Like, what the fuck is that? It's not that, it's not you should be ashamed because people can't afford it. I feel sorry for the guy in that conversation. It's like, it's a ridiculous trying to find just the right balance because there's nothing really challenging you. Because you don't have any real problems, and you're not on the earth. You're not standing on the earth anymore. You're in a bubble where you sort of like, maybe I'll try this, and maybe I'll do
magic word
now, and I'll do. You know what I mean? And you'll never find a balance because life that's not a normal life.
So right here, Louis C.K. is looking at him, and he knows he's lost him. He knows that Joe's offended.
But you have a physical body. And if you have a physical body, there's things that are beneficial to your physical body. Sure. And if you choose to do those things, you'll have a better body. It'll work better. And if you choose not to do those things because you think they're ridiculous, so do you think?
That's high, Joe, right?
Sure. That's boring, Joe. Like, you have a physical body, that still doesn't make the conversation not boring. But also, who wants to listen to the two most boring people on earth talk about that? That's my other point. I thought it was funny. Like, Louis did that a couple of times during that episode. I did watch the full episode. Believe it or not, I still am a fan of Louis C.K. He did that a couple of times about a couple of different things. And then he went on Bert Kreischer's podcast and did it more to Bert on his podcast, which I thought Louis
did, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Louis did, yeah. Oh, called him out for being a rich kid and living in a bubble, being out of touch with reality and, but yeah. So that was very important for you to see because Louis is going on these run of podcasts. And I feel like he's on a mission to kind of bring people back to earth. That's just what it felt like to me. I could be wrong. What is your reaction to that, though? Do you like the way that he handled that, or you? Because I feel like a lot of people were kind of like, "What's Louis doing? Like, just let people be. Like, why do you gotta criticize? Like, I don't know, because that's what you do. That's what everyone does. That's what we all do. So why can't Louis do it?"
I think it's very rare that you see anybody calling Joe Rogan out for something like that.
Correct.
I don't know if it's because they're scared of the rebuttal that they're going to get back from him, or if they're not on point, that can make them look bad for calling him out, which we've seen that happen before. But the behind the scenes stuff too, probably where, I think Rogan flies these people in to do his show. And I'm sure a lot of people are paid to do his show.
You think so?
I would think so, don't you think? Or you think people just do it for the exposure? That's it.
Yeah, I don't think people get paid to do it.
So what about traveling?
Man, I've heard him talk about it in the past. I don't know what it's like now that he's in Austin and he is who he is. I don't know. I don't think people get paid.
Okay, maybe they don't. I don't know. I don't have any numbers in front of me to say that actually happened. That was my thought, but
this came up recently, which I don't know if you're even a fan or pay attention, but Anthony Cumia got into it with one of his regular guests because the regular guest, who was getting paid, albeit a small amount of money, was bitching about they weren't getting paid enough to be a recurring guest on his show. And Anthony Cumia was like, dude, you're lucky you're getting paid at all because people don't get paid to appear as a guest on podcasts. They just go, they do it. Maybe Rogan has the budget to pay his. I doubt it, dude. I really don't think so.
Maybe not.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That would seem like a bad deal, though, if he had to start paying people, right? Like the idea is that they want to come on and.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, it would almost make more sense if it was the opposite, and people were paying to come on his show.
A little bit. They're
paying for the exposure.
I mean, I've heard, I don't know it to be true, that some podcasts are paying people to be on that to help boost their numbers. But I don't know that to be. Obviously, I'm never going to know, but I've heard.
You're saying
I won't say who,
people are paying to be on a show, or people are paying other people to be on their show?
People are paying other people to be on their show to help boost the numbers and the views and all that good stuff.
That's kind of gross, right?
Well, I mean,
I
is it
I
a
under-
terrible business
I-
move to have someone on your show? Like, say, for instance, let's say I'm a top 5 welterweight in the UFC. Okay. You pay me, and I have a giant following on social media. I'm loud, I'm boisterous, I'm all over the place. People follow me, right? I get views upon views upon views, no matter what I do. It could be on Instagram, it could be on TikTok, it could be on YouTube, it could be anything. You pay me 10 grand to come on your podcast, and that turns into 1 million plus views for you. Seems kind of worth it. No?
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a bad business move. I'm just saying that it's you don't
And by
have
the
that
way, me just
growth.
saying that I was a UFC welterweight might have given away who might be paying people if you caught on to that. But go ahead.
But it's not that way with Rogan, I guess, because he has no reason to need to
It's
pay
the
people,
largest
I
platform
guess.
on
Yeah.
earth, man. I don't think he needs
Yeah.
to, man. Yeah, I mean, I obviously, you go on there, depending upon who you are and what you do for a living. Specifically, if you're in the entertainment industry, you go on there, it benefits you tremendously,
For sure. Yeah.
tremendously. So,
But that's another reason why I say it's rare that anybody calls out Rogan, because you're
They're
basically
scared
you're burning a bridge.
I don't think Louis gives a fuck.
No, Louis doesn't. No, he
That's
doesn't.
why I like him.
Yeah, he doesn't need that. If nothing else, he probably got more views because of calling Rogan out.
100%. That
So,
video is everywhere. That video we just watched is one person out of 1,000, out of 1,000 takes on that small little tidbit of 3-hour podcast with Louis.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
because people don't call Rogan on his bullshit most of the time. I've seen very few people do it. Bill Burr's done it. Louis done it. I
But
mean,
Burr hasn't done it in it is more of a joking way when he's done it, right?
I don't know. They kind of got into it pretty hard about masks and the coronavirus, because the last time Bill Burr was on there, and if ironically he hasn't been back, was sort of mid-pandemic. So, but Bill Burr, you could tell was very sort of like, because Joe was kind of like trying to call him a pussy for wearing a mask, like outside, out in public, and Bill Burr was like, "I'm not going to do this with you. You don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm trying to just abide by the rules that they've set, like,
Right.
that whole thing. Which good for him. That whole thing, and God forbid we go down a COVID road, which I'm not. But that whole thing about the masks and people, like if you see someone today still wearing a mask, do you even bat an eye? Do you even think about it twice? Or you just go, hey, like, that's their decision. They, they're paranoid. They do what they got to do. That whole thing.
Yeah, that's where I'm at, mainly because you don't see it very much anymore. I mean, I definitely notice it because there's still kind of like a sore thumb in most places right now.
Yeah.
But I don't look at that person as like a pansy or anything like that. I'm just like,
well, God, I hope not.
I also don't know what their situation is. They
Correct.
may have an immune system that isn't great for
Correct.
some reason, and and whether the mask works or not, I don't know. I told you, a couple weeks ago that when we get the sniffles around my house, or one of us starts feeling sick, we normally throw a mask on, and that's mainly for my kid. Whether it helps or not,
Sure.
I don't know, but I know that he hasn't gotten sick.
The
when
idea
we've
is
been
to
sick,
protect
so-
him from you, not you
Exactly.
from him.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue that. I'm not going to guess.
I'm not even going to try.
I'm exhausted at it. Well, 2 weeks ago, I had to go get some blood work done. Yeah, I'm in the waiting room, and it clearly it says all over the building, put on a mask.
Mhm.
They have masks lying everywhere. And there's this guy sitting there and just didn't have one on. And he got there before me, and I was there a good 10, 15 minutes before, a nurse came out and said, "Sir, you need to have a mask on to be sitting in this waiting room." And he, a little bit of a fuss out of him. And she goes, "Sir, I have a mask. I can give you one if you don't have one." She was being very polite. And I wanted to be like, if he kept going, I'd be like, "Bro, just put the fucking mask on. We're all here for the same reason. They're going to take your blood and you're going to be gone."
Yeah.
Like, just, I mean, fuck, what? I don't understand. But those are human life. That's what we do. And moving on to something a little bit more positive, let's stop hating on Joe Rogan, even though it's fun. My takeaway from that was good for Louis. That whole bubble thing and that whole like, and again, they can talk about whatever they want. Tom Segura actually got really defensive because his fans were kind of like calling him out for like, all you guys do is talk about expensive shit now. You talk about watches and cars that none of us can afford, and it's not fun to listen to. And he went on this whole, did I send you that?
I don't think so.
He went on this whole rant about like, hey, guess what? You're listening to my podcast and other people in your life are going to talk about shit that you can't have. Deal with it. Why is it my problem? You can't afford a nice watch and blah, 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 blah. A lot of people reacted poorly to it. I'm kind of like, yeah, he's right. But also people get to complain about what you talk about if they're your fan. It's supposed to be a comedy podcast. Talk about something funny. Rolexes aren't funny. You get to talk about what you want.
But in the end, he I'm not agreeing or disagreeing, but in the end, it's also like he said, you're listening to my show. If you don't want to hear me talk about it, then don't listen to my show.
That's been our rebuttal to any of this stuff from day one. You can just turn it off and revisit it later. Maybe they'll be talking about something you like.
Right.
But speaking of getting defensive, did you see that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame issued a statement kind of defending what they think rock music means? Because I guess this year's nominees brought out a bunch of haters and critics about who was nominated.
This is an every year thing though, right? Every year.
But they've never publicly stated what their criteria is. Not that I can remember.
But they've always had people guessing, and every year, I think me and you've talked about it probably every year that we've talked about who was inducted and stuff. And we've said, what is the criteria? Because we're talking Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Should we just call it the Music Hall of Fame? I don't know.
Yeah.
But you're all over the map if you're really talking about what you think rock and roll music is.
I agree. I think rock and roll it's a marriage of several different subgenres or genres of music or genres or I'm sorry, let me take this back. It's a marriage of several different cultures that came together and formed a lot of different sounds that could be considered rock and roll. But their response was actually their statement was actually in response to people bitching about Dolly Parton being nominated. But I'll be honest with you, when this came out, I was expecting a bad statement from them, and I don't mind it. I kind of agree with them, and I kind of like what they said. But they said the Rock Hall said that rock music is not defined by any one genre, but rather a sound that moves youth culture. I agree with that. Now, I think it moves all culture, or it should anyway. Not just necessarily youth, but in response of Dolly Parton's criticism, we praise her brilliant talent and pioneering spirit. The revised mission statement expands on that, adding that born from the collision of rhythm and blues, country, gospel, rock and roll is a spirit that is inclusive and ever changing. I don't like that answer as much. That's a generic sort of like, I'm trying to be poetic and a little too serious type answer.
But also kind of leaves it open. And very broad.
Open, but if you've gone back and done a little bit of research as to who were the first rock artists and when did rock and roll actually when did the term start and who were the first artists, like naming those specifics. So, blues, rhythm and blues, country and gospel, that's really where rock came from. For real. Have I taken a couple of rock history classes for credit? Yeah, I have. Call me a dork. It's an elective. I'm going to take it. I'm a rock and roller. I want to learn. It's fine. But
hey, I while I'm thinking about this, I had a question that I've been wanting to ask you and I forgot until now. The genre of classic rock.
Yep.
Is that distinct to one era? Like
No.
what? Like when?
No.
When will classic rock not be considered classic rock again? Or will that, like, I'm guessing like 70s, 80s, is that what you're going to consider classic rock, or just 70s
no,
maybe?
because Nirvana gets played on classic rock stations now. So does Pearl Jam. So does Stone
Okay,
Temple
so
Pilots.
my question is, the farther in years that we keep on going, is
So
it
like 30
only-
years. Yeah. Linkin Park will eventually be played on classic rock. When was their first record? 2000?
I think
So we're
so.
about 7 years away from Linkin Park being played on classic rock stations. I think the standard is usually 30 years, if I'm not mistaken.
So anything 30 years and longer ago is considered classic. So now, so we're
I believe so.
okay, but in 7 years, in your head, if you think classic rock, are you going to think Linkin Park? You're
No,
probably not, right. You're probably
but
going to
some
think
people
more
will.
like Guns N' Roses and bands around that time, right?
Well, again, you have to understand that this is a radio format. Classic rock was started by the radio stations,
Right.
right? It was a format that was created by the radio stations to get listeners. So we're not going
Right.
to play what's current now. We're going to play what was current a few years ago to bring that nostalgia, again, to use that word nostalgia, make people feel nostalgic and want to listen to the music that they grew up on. That's what it is. And that
Okay.
got really popular in the 90s, if I remember correctly. Classic rock stations blew up in the 90s. Okay.
So in the 90s, were they playing songs from the 60s?
In the 90s, they were playing Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, the Rolling Stones, classic rock. What would have been considered classic rock in the 90s? Yeah.
I guess I never thought that like Linkin Park or somebody, even Nirvana. I know you're saying they get played on classic rock stations, and I get that, but the term classic rock to me goes back to, like I said, like Guns N' Roses and bands around that time period.
Well, it wasn't that long ago that Guns N' Roses was named classic rock or considered suitable for a classic rock station. But Appetite for Destruction came out in 1987. It's a long time ago, man.
Well, I know, I get it. I get
know,
it. I guess my thought was like, when is classic rock not classic rock anymore? I guess, or you know what I'm
So you're
saying?
saying like a
does it
band-
move? Like, does classic rock move past, or is it just
No.
more bands get added to classic?
more
rock?
bands get added to it.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, I
They
got
just
you.
they're yeah.
Okay, I always thought of like classic rock, like I said, as a like a time period, more like like a new metal or like a
No.
an R&B or something like that. Like a
I don't think
genre,
classic
not a
rock is
time.
a genre of music as much as it is a radio format.
Okay, all right, that makes sense.
My opinion, but I think I'm right. I don't know. Let's go over the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees for 2023, which I'm sure we will see people be bitching about much more as we get closer.
Sure.
I'm sorry, these are the nominees. The inductees will be named in May. 14. Here's the thing. My one criticism, because none of this matters. I'm all for just everyone getting in.
Uh-huh.
Like, did you put out some good albums? Do you rock, or are you awesome? Or did you have some sort of influence over anyone? Then get in. I don't care. But like, to have 14 nominees to choose from seems there should be like 5 to pick from, 3 get in. And the 2 that didn't get in, you get to go back next year. Like, it seems like this is such a long list to choose from. And I think some of these are carryover, but so your girl, Kate Bush, Sheryl Crow, Missy Elliott.
Would Kate Bush have got, would she even be a nominee
No.
if
I already
it
know what you're
wasn't
asking,
for
and no.
Stranger Things?
No.
That's insane, right?
I don't think. I could be wrong. She might have been on a previous list. I don't think she was. I've never seen her name floating around. So you have Kate Bush, Sheryl Crow, Missy Elliott, which I'm sure people will bitch about. Iron Maiden, which should be in. How they're not in already, I have no idea. I have no idea.
That's kind of have they been nominated in the past and didn't get it?
I want to say yes.
Okay.
To that. Joy Division, New Order. I think they're going to get in because the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame likes to be a little bit cool with it. Cyndi Lauper, George Michael, Willie Nelson. Willie Nelson, again, how's he not in?
Yeah, for sure.
Like Rage Against the Machine, they will get in. Soundgarden, they will get in. The Spinners, and I actually have seen that name before. A Tribe Called Quest, which I really love. People will probably bitch about it.
Going back
to
Soundgarden, is Chris Cornell in solo, or is he in with Audio Slave or anything like that?
No. Soundgarden would be the first of to be considered.
Okay.
Let's see. The White Stripes, which you know how I feel, and Warren Zevon. 8 artists or groups are appearing on this list for the first time. Sorry, I did not look at this before. So Sheryl Crow, first time being nominated. Missy, first time. Joy Division, first time. Cyndi Lauper, George Michael, This is Willie Nelson's first time.
No way, really?
The White Stripes and Warren Zevon. So Rage has been on there before. Soundgarden's been on there before. A Tribe Called Quest has been on there before. Iron Maiden's been on there before. Wow, that's bizarre, but okay. So the Spinners, I'm so ignorant right now, but what is
So
their
if
big
we were
song?
looking at controversy in this, Missy Elliott would probably be the biggest, right?
Well, there's no controversy, but yeah.
You know what I'm saying? As far
Yeah,
as what rock and roll means or how it's described or whatever.
She moved youth culture. So by their
Yeah.
standards, I think she fits in pretty well, right?
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
I'll say this. Most of the people on this list should be in. Most of. I don't know how I feel about, I'll be honest. And again, just based on what my criteria that I listed earlier, like, did you have some sort of impact? You know, did you put out a couple of good records? Did you kind of influence a generation of people? Kate Bush and Cyndi Lauper, I don't know if you should be in there, but fine, let them in. If they got in, I wouldn't bitch about it. I'm just saying, based on my own personal criteria. Yeah, I know girls just want to have fun. I get it, but still.
That's what I was going to say. As far as popularity goes, Cyndi Lauper way
Of
before
course.
Kate Bush.
Of course.
But again, what I said and you agreed, no way was Kate Bush even put into this conversation if it wasn't for her the popularity of that song in Stranger Things over this past year.
Well, see, I'm an idiot and I'm wrong because this isn't her first time being nominated.
Really?
It
Did
says
she
8
have
artists or
more than
groups are
that
appearing on
song?
the list for the. I don't know, dude. I really don't know.
I mean, I'm assuming there was a record that went along with that song, but
Let's see how many. So if you Google Kate Bush, Running Up That Hill is all that happens. So she has Running Up That Hill, Wuthering Heights, which came out in 1978. Holy fuck.
well, when did Running Up That Hill come out?
85.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know any of these songs. I really don't. My prediction of the list, I think the people that will get in will be Rage, Joy Division.
Soundgarden.
How in the actual fuck are they not in yet? And how is Iron Maiden not in yet?
That's the one that has my mind blown more than any of them is Iron Maiden. How are they not in?
And I never realized that A Tribe Called Quest was nominated before. I didn't even know. I wonder what years they were, but yeah, you know what? I don't know if I can make a prediction because there were like 5 or 6, and I'm like, why the fuck why wouldn't they be in? It makes no sense. Who
Right.
got in last year? Eminem.
Quick question. What does being in the Hall of Fame do for an artist or a
I mean,
musician or a
I
band?
don't know. You get to be a part of a night where people celebrate you. I mean,
Okay. I just didn't know if like that did actually did anything for you. I mean, I guess it probably gets you some more money in the short term because your name's out there as being nominated. So people are going to be looking you up and
yeah, I mean,
all that
don't get it
for a
twisted. Your
while.
streams are going to go up.
Yeah.
Everything's going to go up
Yeah.
around the time that you get announced as being inducted, and then B, when the actual the performance happens. I guarantee you Eminem streams went up big time around that time. Yeah.
Worked out pretty well. When that happens in May, right? Or you said
Yeah.
in
They
May?
get inducted in May and then the concert will follow. It didn't really give a date, but
So he had the Super Bowl that rolled into being put in the Hall of Fame.
yeah. Well, I don't know if it was the same time last year. I guess it would have been. But didn't I just did
Super
an
Bowl
episode on
was
this
it?
solo, remember? When was that? That was like around,
I don't remember.
because I
when
talked about it. It doesn't matter. I'm curious. I'm intrigued. I'll be watching. But last year it was, besides Eminem, it was Dolly Parton, Pat Benatar, Eurythmics, Carly Simon, Duran Duran, Lionel Richie, Judas Priest. Which again, how is Judas Priest not in the hall? I don't know.
Right.
I mean, the other ones I'm like, okay, takes a little bit of time, like Eurythmics, Pat Benatar, Duran Duran. Like, all right, that was the proper amount of time to go by. Judas Priest is like one of the biggest, most influential metal bands of all time.
Yeah.
So did you look at the list I sent you of like bands that weren't nominated but could have been?
I did, but I don't remember who was on it.
Artists newly eligible for Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2023, but weren't nominated. So like Limp Bizkit was on there, Evanescence, and it was
Yep.
based on the amount of time that's gone by. So I guess it's 25 years. 1997, would that be 25 years ago? Do the math. I'm not doing it.
When 97,
Yeah.
10, 23, 26 years ago.
Yeah. So okay. That makes sense. So it has to be 25 years, not even 30. Or I said 30 for classic rock, but Evanescence
System of a
dropped
Down
their
was
first
up to,
EP 1998, Queens of the Stone Age, Limp Bizkit, Creed, Godsmack,
right?
System of a Down. System of a Down will eventually get in. Third Eye
Yeah.
Blind. Third Eye Blind's an interesting one. I don't know why.
I
that-
agree. I agree. It's not your typical nominee.
I could see them getting in though.
And they're not like in that same, somehow they're not in that same group in my head of the bands that you just named, like Evanescence.
Well, no,
and,
no.
you know, System of a Down and stuff like that. They're more of a
Third Eye
It's
Blind was
more-
that post grunge era of music.
yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of-
Seven Dust.
Oh,
It's a good one.
yeah.
The Dillinger Escape Plan. I know they won't get in, but that's a good one to me. Hoopsnake put out their first record in 1998.
I mean, yeah, it was a long time, huh?
Smash
Yes.
Mouth, your boys. Switchfoot, another good one. And my favorite, Mudvayne.
Has Switchfoot been around that long?
97 was their first record.
No way, really?
Mudvayne's first record
They
was an EP
didn't
in
hit.
97.
Switchfoot didn't hit until
2000s.
like Meant to Live, right? That was
Meant to
probably
Live,
about-
that was probably
them over.
2002-ish, if I want to say.
that sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I again, the criteria is muddy to me, but I do like the explanation they gave. Just like, did you move culture? Did you shake things up? You know, of all the people I see on this list, I think in some way, probably yes, they did. You know, from
Mhm.
being like one of the original Motown groups to have a hit to being the White Stripes. Yeah, probably. You know.